Every now and then, I come across someone who's experienced a past life regression and wants me to validate their experience. I'm happy to validate their experience, but I certainly have no concrete way of validating any alternate reality. We are multi-sensory organisms. Who the heck knows if these are even past lives? Maybe everyone has had the same past life at some point. Isn't everything happening all at once anyway? But none of this is the point. The point, and what I always try to focus on, is this. How is this vision relevant to present circumstances? This is Soul Mechanics, practical tune-ups to be a healthy human, and I'm your host, Kate Foley. Past lives are just information to help us with our present circumstances. Likely, it's our subconscious mind trying to communicate something significant to us. Does it matter if they're true? Probably not. You're resonating with a story. The question you need to ask yourself when you have a past or future life memory is, how does this information coincide with my current circumstances and state of being? How is this information helpful to me presently? Everything is meant to help us presently. We are not meant to delve into what we were. It's not important. I don't care if you communed in a chocolate fountain with the last unicorn that ever lived. None of that is important. What is important is if that unicorn ate the last potato chip in the last bag that ever existed, and you felt an overwhelming sense of blame toward that unicorn. That blame is what you need to pay attention to. What we envision or identify as in the past, no matter how many hours or centuries ago, only helps us to navigate our present circumstances. We are not supposed to analyze our pasts, but rather utilize it as a tool for understanding what is happening right now. And what do I mean by what is happening right now? I mean your passions, your motivations, your intentions, your dreams, your relationships, your momentary thoughts and feelings, your blame, guilt, envy, your obsessions. In my experience, numerous past life regressions just confuse people, and it can cause unrealistic expectations for their current lives and relationships. I do think these can be helpful tools to excavate symbols and unearthed feelings, though. But to invest in the story seems to only create emotions around something that isn't tangible. Again, investing in a past life story can make your current life very confusing and emotionally volatile. No matter how simple our lives or trivial our day-to-day seems, there is significance in it. Does your significance make you special? No. But you have influence. You have a part to play. You are tugging on the cosmic fabric, and you can feel others tugging on this as well. It's like being in bed with another person. If somebody pulls too hard on the covers, it slips off of you. If you pull too hard on the covers, they slip off someone else. Pulling too hard, making big splashes, affects everyone. When you're out of balance, it's important to take accountability for it. Take a look at your life. Is it a mess? Do you have fires everywhere? Arguments? Chronic chaos? Chronic stress? Finger pointing? Are you a magnet for drama? You might not create it, but you're drawn to it. You see it, you know, and guess what? Your chaos isn't isolated. When you're out of balance, your waves of chaos and stress begin to affect everyone else, even those who don't know you. You become a tropical storm gathering warm wind and affecting small island towns and the people in those towns. We all feel your emotional splashes. This isn't my way of saying calm down. I'm saying take a look at our connection. Take accountability for your thoughts, feelings, and actions. When I say take accountability, I don't mean berate yourself for feeling irritated at someone or something. I mean, own it. Understand that you are the one feeling irritated, and no one makes you feel that way. It's also okay to feel irritated, but allow that irritation to move on. It's when you indulge in a thought or a feeling that it begins to reside in your energy field and your body. On the subject of irritation, sometimes we feel depleted or exasperated, or there might be people or situations in our lives that confuse us or anger us. Have you ever been in a situation, maybe with a partner, a family member, or a friend, where you feel misunderstood and confused? Do you ever turn to someone to vent your emotions? Venting can feel like we're unburdening ourselves, and it's a true gift to find a person in your life who will listen to you. However, there's a fine line between venting and indulging. Venting is usually pretty quick, and it's considerate to let your listener know what's coming. It's also considerate to ask if they're willing to listen. Also, it's appropriate to limit yourself. With their permission and with a time limitation, vent. Thank them for listening and move on with your day. On the other hand, there's indulgence. Often, the listener has no warning, and often, the indulgence goes on and on. The downward spiral begins and frequently turns into complaining or worse. Over-disclosure with an all-out rant. Emotions have taken a front seat in our culture, but apparently without recognition. Often, emotions are hiding behind a veil of quote-unquote fact or blame or dozens of other cloaks. I've talked about this before in previous episodes. It's interesting to watch from a distance, but it's frustrating to be in the midst of it. When someone is clearly emotional and screaming about fact or rationality, there's no clear path to a dialogue. We can't actually have an appropriate discussion unless we see our emotions for what they are, emotions. But if we're going to label our emotions as fact or rational, we have a problem. Communication becomes more of a grammatical hostage situation. When we're feeling an emotion about something, about anything, it's not hard to detect. If something makes me angry, my heart rate elevates. Sometimes I feel a surge of adrenaline. It's sudden. My body makes me very aware that there's been a shift. That's my first sign. If I'm angry, I realize quickly that I'm not rational, and I also have an attachment to making my point heard. If I'm in a discussion with a rational person, I usually feel safe enough to say, I feel angry about this, and I need to calm down before we continue discussing this. If I don't feel safe to express my present emotional state, I frequently become quiet. But I've seen other people double down and move into doggedly defending their angry point. The discussion quickly becomes imbalanced, and usually the angry person dominates. Any rational person understands that discussing anything with an emotional person who's not aware they're emotional is pointless. When you're not feeling safe to express emotions and to claim them, and this can happen for various reasons, this perception that you aren't safe can trigger other emotions, deeper and perhaps older emotions, and create a very confusing, choppy, turbulent situation. Think about road rage. Think about those people on the road who cruise along expecting everyone else to go their speed or faster. If you get in their way, or you do something they weren't expecting, you get an obvious sign that you've angered them. Either they tailgate you closely, or they rev their engine and speed around you, giving you the indication that they aren't happy with your driving action. You might even receive a hand gesture, and if you've really pushed their buttons, you'll receive a verbal undressing. Do you really think you've angered them? Probably not. There is some emotion simmering under the surface, making them very anxious and ready to burst. The next time you take a ride in a car anywhere, take a look around. You'll see signs of this everywhere. Look for this behavior. It's rampant. These are prime examples of poor emotional hygiene. Do you think these people are owning their emotions? Do you think these people are even aware of their emotions? Probably not. Emotions cannot be dealt with in the same way as rational thought. You can't just say to yourself, this anger isn't congruent with these circumstances, therefore I'm not angry. The emotion is leading you somewhere. Maybe it's a memory. Maybe it's grief. Maybe you need to break up with your boyfriend. Maybe you need to leave your job. Maybe you need a vacation. Maybe you have repeating thoughts of self-degradation and anger is always waiting to be expressed. No matter what it is, emotion needs to be acknowledged without judgment. And let's face it, emotions don't make sense. They're not supposed to make sense. Emotions are arrows. They're giving us insight into our inner environments, not our outside environments. They're giving us direction. Take anxiety, for example. Anxiety can be very useful. A small amount can get us out of bed in the morning, make us on time for work. We can utilize anxiety for house repairs, or to motivate us to reach for a promotion, or to take the risk for a lifelong dream, or for athletics. However, there's an imbalance that can happen when anxiety becomes the focus, and the initial action doesn't relieve it. There's something under the anxiety. There's something prompting the anxiety, like a stimulus tapping on a nerve over and over again. For some folks, dealing with the anxiety is preferable to dealing with the stimulus. The stimulus might be a traumatic memory, or a relationship they don't want to confront, or a way of being. Maybe the stimulus to your anxiety is your self-worth. Maybe the anxiety becomes prominent every night at 8 p.m. Rather than sitting with it, you reach for a beer, or you reach for the potato chips or chocolate, and the pattern continues. It might seep into other areas and begin to spread into your relationships and your choices throughout the day. You might think that your self-worth is a different issue. So you start to compartmentalize your anxiety from your self-worth. You might even begin to treat the anxiety with pharmaceuticals, or self-medicate with alcohol or another substance. But the stimulus is still there. Sometimes the stimulus is organic. The stimulus to your anxiety might be an actual physical issue. But if you're too busy focusing on the anxiety itself, you won't be able to listen to your body telling you that something is physically out of balance. We can't run away from our emotions. I think that's why so many people act on them rather than observe them. The emotions are, after all, arrows, pointing towards something deeper, giving us the solution to the discomfort. But because so many of us are uncomfortable with change and confrontation, the answer remains a mystery, and the emotions grow rather than move. I personally think that we're living in a time where our emotions are taking the driver's seat in our lives. There's been a shift from rational thought to emotional focus. When I look around, I see a lot of emotional mismanagement. I'm curious as to why we have so much difficulty accepting the idea that we are emotional beings. As most people know, when you avoid something or resist it, that just makes it stronger. There's avoidance of an emotion, and then there's the act of calling an emotional state rational, which is totally irrational. People often invalidate another person's emotional state because they themselves are uncomfortable with emotions. A lot of this goes back to what we're taught. But even though we're taught something as children, we make conscious decisions every day. We learn new ways of being every day. We can't blame our childhoods for the way we operate today. And it's not about blame anyway. Blaming anyone for anything is just a diversion from owning our uncomfortable emotions and actions. Emotional hygiene requires self-awareness. It's not difficult to become self-aware when you have such a strong emotion waving a red flag in your face all day. The emotion is guiding you toward observation and eventual change. Is it easy? No. But wouldn't you rather have a life of movement and change and healthy emotions rather than getting stuck in a sandpit of rising emotion, stagnating your life, relationships, and your health? This might be hard for you to hear, and you might think I don't understand your situation. But I can tell you from personal and professional experience that when you sink into that wretched, sticky, uncomfortable emotion, and allow the imagery, memories, random sentences, and anything else undefinable to surface. When you observe the emotion and act on the guidance, fearless in the eye of change, confronting the relationships that require altering or ending, you will soon find yourself in a very different state of being and just maybe very different circumstances. This is Kate Foley. Thank you for listening.